The dining room was too polished, too rehearsed. Silver cutlery gleamed under the chandelier. Plates of roasted chicken lined the table. Wine swirling in glasses that weren't mine to fill. I had worked a double shift that week, sent another, payment toward the lingering family debt. And yet tonight, I was the guest of honor in my own undoing. Mom's voice sliced through the air like a knife. You're just bitter because Sierra succeeded. The words landed heavier than the roast chicken, heavier even than the silence that followed. My sister smiled faintly, tilting her champagne glass as though this performance had been staged for her benefit. Dad looked up from his plate, but not at me, at Mom, waiting for her to feed him his next line. I breathed once, twice, then answered quietly. My tone could in cleaner than any shout could. Then ask her to return the $61,000 I gave you since college. The room fractured. Sierra's hand froze mid-toast. Mom's eyes widened, her smirk unraveling. And Dad, steady, composed Dad, dropped his fork, the clatter echoing through the dining room like a gavel. For years, I had been the silent ledger, paying bills, covering tuition gaps, rescuing them from overdrafts, watching as Sierra strutted through life on cushions I had bought. My sacrifices had been rewritten into her victories. Tonight, I rewrote them back. If betrayal has ever silenced you, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. You kept records. I leaned forward, steady. Every single receipt. The chandelier flickered, as if it too knew the performance was collapsing. I thought the truth would end it. I thought silence would follow. But the performance wasn't over. Mom's lips curled as she whispered, "Then you've declared war." War. The word rang in my ears all the way home. I didn't slam the door. I didn't sob. I pulled the plastics bin from the top shelf of my closet and set it on the table, like evidence in a case I'd been building without knowing it. Receipts, screenshots, bank statements, a yellow folder labeled College Gap, another Sierra Emergencies. I laid them out in a grid. Years mapped in ink. Freshman year, saved $800, late registration fee, because Dad forgot to mail the forms. Sophomore year, $3,250, study abroad flight. Sierra smiling with a straw hat I'd bought. Junior year, $4,900, laptop plus books, plus incidentals. Mom said, consider it sisterhood. Senior year, $7,400, moving costs. Sierra's first apartment, granite counters, velvet couch. After graduation, rent top-ups, car insurance, while she builds her brand, a launch party at a rooftop bar because image is investment. The numbers swelled like a bruise. My mother, the self-branded event stylist, who quoted, "Hustle while handing me her bill." My father, the perennial consultant between clients, between paychecks, between truths. Sierra, a wellness coach with perfect morning routines, funded by my sleepless nights. And then there was Aunt Leela, the good contrast. Bookkeeper hands, steady voice. She once pressed a notebook into my palm and said, "Keep records. People forget, paper doesn't." I had rolled my eyes. I kept the notebook anyway. I opened it now. Every loan, every text, every "we'll pay you back soon." Besides some entries I'd written a single word, silence. My phone vibrated. A family group chat. Mom had renamed it Wedding Week Joy. New photo. Sierra in white. A caption about abundance, gratitude, and clean beginnings. Clean beginnings funded by dirty ledger lines. I took a photo of the grid on my table and sent it to my own email, subject line, $61,000. I wasn't ready to send it to them. Not yet, not without strategy. I opened my banking app and removed 2 linked cards with trembling thumbs, auto-pays, transfers. Just this once. Permissions that had quietly become pipelines. Then a push notification slid across my screen. $3,100 charge approved. Bridal suite upgrade. Approved with my saved card. I stared at the glow, the digits, the casual theft wearing a bow. Another notification arrived before my breath. Returned. This time a message from Sierra. If you make tonight ugly, I go public. The message sat on my screen like a poison pill. If you make tonight ugly, I go public. Public. The word cut deeper than any dollar amount. My family had always thrived on perception. Holiday cards with matching outfits. Instagram captions dripping with gratitude. Polished smiles at charity galas. They lived for applause, and Sierra knew exactly where to stab. Reputation. I stared. At her words, my heart hammering. Public meant lies spun into truth before I could blink. Public meant years of sacrifice, reduced to slander in a single post. But I wasn't the same silent financier anymore. I had records. I had proof. I had resolve. That night, I sat cross-legged on the floor, receipts fanned. Around me like tarot cards, predicting a future I hadn't yet dared to imagine. My aunt's old notebook lay open, its ink faded but stubborn. Keep records. Paper doesn't lie. So I began to draft. A timeline, clean and indisputable. From the first tuition gap in freshman year to the bridal suite upgrade, charged just hours ago. Every favor, every loan, every "you'll get it back soon." A quiet war report, written in bullet points and dollar signs. Still, Sierra's threat gnawed at me. I could already hear Mom's hiss. Ungrateful, bitter, always jealous. I could hear Dad's sigh. The disappointed shake of his head. I could see Sierra's crocodile tears sliding down a live-streamed cheek. And yet, beneath the fear, a flicker of power warmed me. If she went public, so could I. And unlike her, I had receipts that stretched longer than her curated feed. The next morning, I checked my email. Among the junk and wedding updates sat one from an unfamiliar address. Subject, family finances. The body read only 3 words. I can help. Attached was a PDF. I hesitated, hands trembling, as I clicked. It wasn't spam. It was a ledger. My ledger, scanned, formatted, indexed. Pages of the very records I had kept. Now bound together like a weapon ready for court. At the bottom was a note. You're not alone. Call me before they do. And beneath it, a phone number I recognized instantly. Aunt Lila's. I dialed the number before doubt could whisper. The line clicked, and her familiar voice filled the silence. I knew you'd find it, Aunt Lila said. Calm, certain, like she had been waiting. My throat tightened. How did you get my records? You left that notebook with me once, remember? Years ago, when you said you didn't trust yourself to keep it safe. I digitized everything, every receipt, every note. I knew the day would come when they'd try to erase you. Erase me. That word carried the weight of every dinner table, humiliation, every sigh from Dad, every smirk from Mom, every glass Sierra raised with money she hadn't earned. Lila continued, You have enough evidence to stop them cold, but you'll need to move quickly. The wedding spending isn't the end. They've opened credit in your name. Quietly, the balance is already high. The room tilted. What? I emailed you. Copies of the applications, she said. Forged signatures. Their fingerprints are all over it. You need to take this to the bank and lock it down. I sat there, gripping the phone, fury and clarity threading together. My parents hadn't just used me. They had started burying me under debts I never signed for. The $61,000 was only the visible wound. Beneath it, infection. Spread. Why are you helping me? I whispered, though I knew the answer. Lila sighed. Because I watched your mother burn every bridge and your father salt every field. I won't let them do the same to you. You're the only one who still builds. I closed my eyes for the first time in years. I felt anchored, not by obligation, but by someone who believed me. I'll fight, I said, but not just for me, for the truth. That evening, I drafted a letter to the bank and copied Lila's files onto a flash drive. My plan was simple. Stop the bleeding, then expose the wound. But as I slid the drive into my bag, my phone buzzed again. A text from Dad, blunt and venomous. If you ruin Sierra's wedding, you'll regret it forever. Dad's text seared through the screen. If you ruin Sierra's wedding, you'll regret it forever. For years his threats had been softer, veiled in sighs and disappointments. But this was raw, desperate, the mask of control slipping. I typed 3 words in reply. See you there. Then I set the phone face down. The week passed like a drumbeat, every hour pulling me closer to the wedding. I spent those days not in panic, but in preparation. Bank accounts frozen. Credit fraud reported. Aunt Lila's files duplicated into 3 separate folders. One for the attorney, one for the bank, one for me. My life distilled into evidence, but preparation didn't stop the memories. Each night, I dreamt of dinners where I was invisible. Sierra praised for achievements built on my hours. Dad lecturing me about financial responsibility while wearing the shoes I had bought him. Mom whispering, "Don't embarrass us," whenever I asked for acknowledgement. Now embarrassment would be theirs. The wedding morning bloomed with expensive perfection. A rented vineyard draped in roses. Valet attendants. Champagne towers catching the early sun. Guests in gowns and tuxedos mingled, marveling at the family's success. They didn't know the price tag was my bones. I arrived in a simple black dress, a folder tucked under my arm. Heads turned, whispers spread. My mother stiffened. At the sight of me, her smile stretched tight for the cameras. "You weren't invited," she hissed when I reached her. I leaned close, voice steady. "I paid for the tent you're standing under, and the wine you're holding, and the deposit for this vineyard." The crowd shifted like a tide. Guests craned their necks, whispers breaking the vineyard's manicured calm. Aunt Lila stood tall, a slim binder in her hands, her presence more commanding than the entire bridal party. My mother's voice sliced the air. "Lila, sit down. This isn't your business." But Lila didn't flinch. She lifted the binder. Every payment, every withdrawal, every lie. I kept copies because I knew this day would come. My father barked, "Lies! She's making this up." His voice cracked under its own weight, betraying him more than his words. I turned to the guests, family friends, colleagues, people who'd applauded my parents' curated image for years. They told me I was bitter, that Sierra succeeded while I sulked. What they never told you was who paid for her success. I did. $61,000 since college, and more after. Gasps rippled, murmurs colliding like storm winds. Sierra clutched her bouquet, knuckles white. "You're ruining my day," she spat, the sweetness of her rehearsed smile gone. "No," I said quietly. "You ruined mine. Every year I worked double shifts so you could play. At success. Every time you let them paint me as jealous instead of honest." The officiant, caught between silence and duty, shuffled his notes. Shall we, continue? But the ceremony had already collapsed. No vows could stand against exposed ledgers. Aunt Lila opened her binder and began reading dates, amounts, signatures. Her voice carried like scripture. January 5th, 2016, $1,800. Tuition late fee, covered by her. April 12th, 2018, $3,350 for flights, charged to her. September 20th, 2020, $7,400 for Sierra's apartment move, all on her. The guests listened, eyes darting from me to Sierra to my parents, the gilded mask slipping with every figure spoken aloud. Then, a shout broke the murmurs. Dad's hand slammed the table, rattling crystal. Enough! This is slander. We'll sue. We'll bury you. I met his fury with calm. You already tried. You forged credit in my name. The bank has the proof. Keep digging. You'll only bury yourselves. Mom's lips parted, searching for words, but no sound came. Even Sierra's perfect posture sagged, her veil trembling in the breeze. The officiant quietly set his script aside. The wedding wasn't happening. Not now. Maybe not ever. And as the silence deepened, Dad pulled something from his jacket, an envelope thick with papers, and thrust it at me. Then explain this, he growled. The envelope smacked against my chest, heavy with intention. I tore it open, fingers steady, though my pulse thundered. Inside were glossy printouts, pages from my own bank accounts. At least, that's what they wanted people to believe. Dad's voice boomed across the vineyard. She drained our savings. She's unstable, reckless. We had no choice but to protect Sierra's future. Murmurs rippled. Some guests shifted uncomfortably. Others eyed me with suspicion. It was the same tactic they had used my whole life. Twist the story until I became the villain. But this time I was prepared. These aren't mine, I said flatly, holding the papers high. Look closely. The signatures don't match. The formatting is wrong. And the bank already confirmed fraud in my name last week. I pulled out my phone, opening the email chain from the fraud department. Stamped, sealed, undeniable. I read aloud, "We confirm accounts opened without authorization. Investigation ongoing." Aunt Lila stepped forward, binder still open. She's telling the truth. I have every legitimate transaction. Compare them. You'll see the forgeries. Dad's composure cracked. His forehead glistened, his hand trembling as he tried to grab the papers back. Mom clutched Sierra's arm, whispering frantically. But Sierra herself looked like porcelain ready to fracture. "You're ruining everything," she whispered to me, eyes blazing. "Do you know how many sponsors were watching this live?" I almost pitied her. Almost. "Everything was already ruined," I said softly. "I just stopped pretending." The guests began to shift their gaze. Not at me, but at them. The family who preached success, abundance, togetherness, now exposed as leeches, feeding on the child they discarded. Dad's voice wavered. She doesn't understand. We gave her everything." I let the silence hang before replying, "You gave me nothing but bills." The officiant cleared his throat, voice hesitant. "Perhaps we should pause this ceremony," but it was already over. The fairy tale was collapsing in real time. As I turned to leave, Dad lunged, not at me, but at the folder on the gift table, desperate to snatch the evidence. He stumbled, papers scattering across the floor like confetti gone wrong. Receipts fluttered in the wind, guests bending to pick them up, eyes widening with each number they read. The truth was no longer mine to guard. It was loose, flying, undeniable, and Then my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. A single line appeared. Check your joint account, now. The message chilled me. Check your joint account, now. I opened my banking app in front of everyone, hands steady, though my chest roared. The screen loaded, and there it was. A $25,000 withdrawal, processed just minutes ago. Gasps rippled as I held my phone high. They didn't just take my silence, they are still stealing, even as we stand here. The officiant stepped back, stunned. Guests leaned in, reading the glow of my screen, watching as the perfect family shattered beyond repair. Dad's face went ashen. Mom's pearls rattled under her trembling hand, and Sierra's bouquet slipped to the ground. Their empire of image collapsed under the weight of raw numbers. I looked straight at Sierra. Do you know where that money came from? Not from their pockets, from mine. The jobs I worked, the nights I didn't sleep, the life I postponed. You wear success like silk, but every thread was stitched by me. Sierra opened her mouth, but no words came. The crowd's whispers drowned her silence. Sponsors, guests, friends, all witnesses to the truth. I placed my folder back on the gift table, deliberate, final. Consider this my wedding gift, I said. Receipts, reality, and freedom. Then I turned to the guests, my voice calm, almost tender. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it? Tell me below, and subscribe for more true tales. I walked away, past the vineyard roses, past the shattered illusion of family. Aunt Lila joined me at the gate, her binder pressed against her chest. You're free now, she whispered. I nodded. And there finally broke, in more ways than one. Behind us, the murmurs swelled into a storm. Lawsuits, investigations, reputations in ashes. But I didn't need to look back. The door they had slammed on me was now the one closing on them. Because when they hissed across the table, you're just bitter because Sierra succeeded, they never imagined the truth would echo louder than their lies. Bitterness isn't mine. Freedom is.